commissioning, but we will next week, so come back. Yes. Well, my name is Tracy Blakeney. I use she, her pronouns, and I'd like to welcome you to Bucksmont Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's multi-platform worship, where, moved by love, we share lifelong journeys of growth, wonder, and healing, nurturing wholeness in society and spirit, creating a community of justice and compassion. I'd like to give a welcome to everyone joining us online and in person today, members, friends, and those who may be newcomers to our community this morning. If you are new to Bucksmont and visiting us in person today, please stop by our visitor center in the front hallway near where you came in. There you can also make a name tag for yourself and find more information about Unitarian Universalism, Bucksmont Fellowship, and upcoming events. If you'd like a hymnal or a printed order of service, those are available near the entrance of the sanctuary. If you are visiting us online or prefer digital methods, please email our office administrator, Beverly, to sign up for our email newsletter and to get connected to our congregation. Each week in our service, we offer time for people to share a joy or sorrow from their lives by texting a phone number. The number will be shared in the chat box for those online and on screen for everyone now and later in the service. If you would like to see the order of service, details about upcoming services, and other ways to gather with our community, you can find that on the homepage of our website. There's a lot happening at Bucksmont, and we'd like to highlight these announcements in particular. Religious education this week from 10:30 to 11:45. Childcare is available for families with little ones 5 and under. They are invited to drop off or stay and play in the nursery as needed. All children are welcome to use the play spaces in the sanctuary and the social hall. Join us for summer community nights at Bucksmont starting at 6:30 p.m. each time on July 16th, and all of this will be in the e-voice, so these dates, you don't have to remember them. But July 16th, we will have a tabletop game night. July 30th, we will have a movie night. August 13th, we will have another tabletop game night. And August 27th is another movie night. Bring a favorite game or play the ones already here. Come for popcorn, stay for the community. More details are in the e-voice or the homepage of Bucksmont. Whether you are a guest, friend, or member, we welcome you to our worship services today. As we gather in our sanctuary, in our homes, or watch from mobile screens almost anywhere, we are all together. Those watching now on Sunday and those who may be watching months from now. We are joined together for worship across both space and time. This is a free, creedless religious congregation. In the discipline of truth and the spirit of universal kinship, we join together in a cooperative quest for religious and ethical values, seeking to apply these values to the development of character, enrichment of the spirit, and service to all. You are welcome here, whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever the color of your skin or your country of origin, no matter your gender expression or gender identity, whatever your age, however you define family, wherever you are at this time, and whatever the source of your faith, you are welcome here. This morning, as we do each time we gather, we kindle our Unitarian Universalist chalice. We do so today with words from Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky, above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. Please light your chalice at home. Our common chalice is now lit. It may light soon.
There you go. It takes a minute. I think it's the fan.
And that's kind of the message of the service, so there you go.
Yeah, it's the fan.
Pretend you see flames flickering in abundance.
Good morning. I'm Dina Conner and I am your song leader this morning. I will be sitting, not to worry, just lots of arthritis. So I do, however, invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our first hymn. If you're using the hymnal, it's the gray hymnal number 38. Otherwise, the words are up on the screen. Please join me in singing Morning Has Broken.
Praise Good morning, little friends. Today we're going to be reading We Are the Water Protectors. Water is the first medicine, Nokomis told me. We come from water. It nourished us inside our mother's body as it nourishes us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. The river's rhythm runs through our veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a black snake that will destroy the land. Spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. When my people first spoke of the black snake, they foretold that it wouldn't come for many, many years. Now the black snake is here. Its venom burns the land, courses through the water, making it unfit to drink. Take courage. I must keep the black snake away. For my village's water, I must rally my people together. To stand for the water, to stand for the land, to stand as one against the black snake. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, the winged ones, the crawling ones, the four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, lakes, the earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down, track down my face, tracks down my people's faces. Water has its own spirit, Nokomis told me. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors who came before us, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are stewards of the earth. Our spirits have not yet been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is in for the fight of its life. The end. Thank you.
Then you may go on to Sunday school.
As you go on your way, may you be filled with gladness. Go in joy, go in joy. May fortune bless your day with peace and loving kindness. Go in love, go in love. As you go on your way, may you be filled with gladness. Go in joy, go in joy. May fortune bless your day with peace and loving kindness. Go in love, go in love.
The offering in liberal religion is a vital part of our history of faith. As a covenanted community, people who freely choose to be here, our voluntary giving is a symbol of that freedom of choice. Each week at Bucksmont, we share our offering with a different cause or organization in the community. And for the month of July, we are sharing with Equate. Equate stands for Earth Quaker Action Team, which is a grassroots, nonviolent action group, including Quakers and people of diverse beliefs who join with millions of people around the world fighting for a just and sustainable economy. We ask that you participate in our morning offering in one of these ways. You can write out a check to Bucksmont and mail it into the fellowship. You may donate online now or at the end of the worship service. Or you may place your donation into one of the baskets as they are passed. We will now receive the morning offering. Our community continues to grow and thrive due to generous donations of both time and money. For the many ways that you contribute and how it sustains this fellowship, we are truly grateful. This morning's reading is A Map of Balance and Harmony by Robin Wall Kimmerer. At the height of the summer, when the days are long and bright and the thunderers come to soak the ground, the lessons of reciprocity are clearly written in a Three Sisters garden. Together, their stems inscribe what looks to me like a blueprint of the world, a map of balance and harmony. The corn stands 8 feet tall. Rippling green ribbons of leaf curl away from the stem in every direction to catch the sun. No leaf sits directly over the next, so that each can gather light without shading the others. The bean twines around the corn stalk, weaving itself between the leaves of corn, never interfering with their work. In the spaces where corn leaves are not, buds appear on the vining bean and expand into outstretched leaves and clusters of fragrant flowers. The bean leaves droop and are held close to the stem of the corn. Spread around the feet of the corn and beans is a carpet of big, broad squash leaves that intercept the light that falls among the pillars of corn. Their layered spacing uses the light, a gift from the sun, efficiently, with no waste. The organic symmetry of forms belongs together. The placement of every leaf, the harmony of shapes speak their message. Respect one another, support one another, bring your gift to the world, and receive the gifts of others, and there will be enough for all.
I go by he, him pronouns. I'm Program Director for the Community Gardens Program at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. Thank you all for inviting me into your space today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Margaret, for reaching out to me. So a few disclaimers before I jump into this. So this is normally a presentation I've done at different conferences, things like that. I usually do it within 45 minutes. We're going to really try to condense it. So probably going to jump through a few slides a little bit more quickly, especially the ones about PHS. We want to get into kind of the really juicy parts of the conversation around how gardens can preserve cultures. And I will be, since the slides are up there, I'll probably be letting them just know to advance the slides. So just a few disclaimers. Next slide, please. So today, this morning, I really want to, talk. I know most of you are aware of PHS, Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, but I'll give you a little bit brief overview of that. But really, what we're here to talk about today is how community gardens, urban agriculture really can be used as a tool to preserve and also enhance cultures, cultures from across the world. Next slide, please. But before that, I wanted to do a few acknowledgments. Because I will be talking about food and land, whereby that food comes from, I want to contextualize the conversation by honoring the Lenni Lenape Nation, who are the original stewards of the lands we now inhabit that were called Lenape Hoking. I want to honor their history, their presence, and their ability to thrive, as well as their resistance. The Lenape people lived in harmony with one another upon this territory for thousands of years, and I'd like to honor that and continue their legacy. Secondly, I want to acknowledge that I'm no expert in this subject matter, though I do work in community gardens, urban agriculture, nor am I a representative of the Karen and Chin population who I'll be speaking about today. However, I feel like I'm kind of acting as an ambassador for them and kind of sharing their story and work that they've been doing in South Philadelphia to talk about highlighting gardens and its power to preserve and sustain cultures and identities. And then, of course, I want to acknowledge you all here today, as well as the Bucksmont Unitarian Church, so thank you. Next slide, please. So quickly, about PHS, Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. Next slide. What is PHS? The Pennsylvania Horticultural Society uses horticulture to advance the health and well-being of the greater Philadelphia area. For almost 200 years, PHS has worked to advance horticulture and ensure that gardening is something for everyone. Yes, we will be 200 years old in 2027, believe it or not. And the flower show has been going on for almost the entirety of that. Next slide, please. We work in 4 kind of core impact areas. So I think most people know us for the flower show, but we do a lot more beyond just the flower show. We do a lot of work in the community, with the community. And all of our work is centered around these 4 impact priorities: creating healthy living environments, increasing access to fresh food, building meaningful social connections, and expanding economic opportunity. Next slide, please. And we do that through 3 channels or program areas. Our public gardens and landscapes, so if you've been to Philadelphia and have been to Logan Circle or visited the Azalea Garden, those are spaces managed by the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. We also now are managing the space at Love Park, as well as the Navy Yard down in South Philly. We also have the Healthy Neighborhoods Division, which is really kind of the core of our community programs, which I'll explain, and then our shows and events. We put on the flower show, which is the largest flower show in the nation, and the oldest in the world. I think it's older than the one in the UK. Next slide, please. So Healthy Neighborhoods, that's where the Community Gardens program, which I oversee, fits. Within Healthy Neighborhoods, we have a few different areas. We have our trees program, which really focuses on increasing the tree canopy of Philadelphia and decreasing the urban heat index. Secondly, we have our land care program, which focuses on cleaning and greening of vacant parcels of land in Philadelphia. There are over 40,000 vacant parcels in Philly, 12,000 of which are managed by the Horticultural Society through our land care program. And then we have a workforce development program that focuses on returning citizens and really providing them with the skills and jobs for future employment in the landscape industry or horticulture industry. Next slide. Next slide. Sorry, I went over that already. Next slide. Go. You can jump to and keep going. You go to the next one again. All right, community gardens. So next slide again. All right, so community gardens. I think a lot of here, I saw the beautiful gardens out front, the pollinator gardens, which are gorgeous. Gardens really are kind of an important element of building resilient communities. Community gardens and cooperative gardens are assets to our cities, and that's something that the Horticultural Society is really trying to focus on, to get the city of Philadelphia and other cities to really think about how community gardens can provide kind of a civic duty to our cities, much like our public libraries. They are providing a core resource to the community, not just for cleaning and greening a neighborhood and providing food access, but bringing community together, preserving cultures, so many different things. They elevate food sovereignty, especially in communities experiencing food apartheid. I try to avoid the word food insecurity. I like the word food apartheid because of politics and other things, which I'll get into. And they build social cohesion. Next slide, please. So before I get into kind of how gardens can preserve community, preserve cultures, I think it's important to contextualize things a little bit and provide a little bit of history about community gardens, urban agriculture. And a lot of this goes also back to kind of the history of redlining, disinvestment, and vacancy in Philadelphia, which is very common in a lot of urban areas that kind of experience the post-industrial white flight that happened. Next slide, please. So Philadelphia really has a rich history of urban agriculture, dating well before World War I, World War II, the Victory Gardens. In fact, it really kind of kicked off in the 1800s with a program called the Philadelphia Vacant Lots Cultivation Association, which was in West Philadelphia, where they allocated, several acres to community members to grow food. Once that was established, Philadelphia really continued its commitment to agriculture, whether through the Vacant Lots Cultivation Association or through school gardens like the Edgar Allan Poe School in South Philadelphia, which is no longer. But over the years, fruit-producing gardens became more than just a space to grow food. They became an act of protest, a means to build cultural eco-resiliency, dismantle food apartheid, and advance food sovereignty and build community. Philadelphia today is home to about 300 or more community gardens and production spaces, and these are community-managed spaces created and cared for by the community, both out of necessity, interest, and protest. And this little map here, that I love maps. I like to incorporate lots of maps in my presentations because I feel like we can learn a lot from them. And this map here is just very poignant to represent kind of the threat right now to community gardens. And Margaret, who is actually a community gardener that I work with, knows this very well through her work at the Old Tennis Court Community Farm. So about 67% of gardens and farms exist in areas of the city with higher than average poverty rates. Those are also areas in the city that are facing some of the highest rates of development and gentrification. So there's a real threat to community gardens right now in Philadelphia. This has been happening for the last decade, but has really accelerated in the last 5 years since I've been at PHS. So we're seeing a rampant loss of community gardens because of this development that's happening. And typically, with a community garden, what happens is, back to the 70s and 80s, people were guerrilla gardening. They'd identify a vacant parcel of land and just start growing on it, regardless of who owned the land. That worked fine in the 80s and 90s, but it doesn't work so much well these days because of this development and gentrification that's happening. So a lot of people that are gardening are losing those lands. Next slide. And this is just another great map that talks about the legacy of environmental justice and climate equity in Philadelphia. So you can just see here in the red areas. So you can kind of overlay all these maps. The red areas are where you have a higher heat index. Those are also areas where you're seeing higher developments, also areas where you're seeing greater disinvestment, discrimination, redlining policies and practices. So these are all interconnected, and that's why I really wanted to kind of highlight that first slide about disinvestment, redlining, kind of the injustices that are happening in a city like Philadelphia. Next slide, please. Next one. We're just going to. Great. So PHS and community gardens. Why do we work in community gardens, and what do we do at PHS? So as I mentioned earlier, we really see community gardens and urban agriculture as instrumental to not just Philadelphia, but all large cities. We all know the story of agriculture in this country and how we're seeing the small farms that existed back in the day just vanish and being, consumed by these larger farms. And it's becoming even more important, especially after the pandemic, to kind of create these community spaces where people are producing foods and we're creating, resiliency, we're creating autonomy. So at PHS, our real focus is to increase food access to increase access to fresh produce while also strengthening the social connections between neighbors. So at the Horticultural Society, we really focus on supporting these community gardens with essential tools and anything else they might need for a successful year of gardening. We run multiple greenhouses where we propagate seedlings, but we also work with one of our core partners, Neighborhood Gardens Trust, who is Philadelphia's only land trust that preserves and protects over 50 community gardens and green spaces in the city. Next slide, please. This slide is just an image of kind of some of the services we offer. As I mentioned, tools and materials. We also have a tool library, lending library in North Philadelphia, where gardeners can access an assortment of different tools and equipment from us. Workshops, capital improvements, you name it. Next slide, please. This here is a map of some of the community gardens we support. So as I mentioned, Philadelphia is home to about 300 or more community gardens. That's not an exact precise number. I think there's been no accurate census data done on that, but that's the estimate. We work with about 180 or so community gardens and green spaces across the region. So most of those being in Philadelphia, some in Montgomery County, and a few outside in like Camden County in New Jersey. But this map, you can kind of see them, a lot of them being concentrated in West Philadelphia and North Philly, especially the Germantown, Northwest Philadelphia sections. Next slide, please. This is just an image of what we call our green resource centers, where we propagate a lot of our seedlings and distribute. We grow about 250,000 seedlings a year and distribute them to community gardens. And the purpose of that is really for those gardens to then grow out that food and share it with their communities, whether through mutual aid groups, food pantries, you name it. And we grow an assortment of things, which I'll be explaining shortly when we get into kind of the real nuts and bolts of why gardens are so important to preserving cultures. Next slide, please. This is just an image of one of our newest endeavors in Montgomery County. So if you are ever out at Norristown Farm Park, definitely visit our space there. We're right off of Germantown Pike. We have a 3-acre teaching and education farm where we're running a food as medicine veggie RX program with a behavioral health clinic in Pottstown. And we're also, all the produce is being donated to local food pantries. I think, last year we produced about 10,000 pounds of food, and this year we're projecting to be producing about 20,000 pounds of food, which is some images of that. Next slide. We could go to the next one as well. Thank you. That's just a tool library. So, gardens and culture. What I'm going to be focusing on today is a good community garden in South Philadelphia. So, if you all know South Philly is not an area you might associate with green space. I mean, you might associate it with bad parking, the Italian market, other things, but we don't associate it with trees or green spaces. But there are a few pockets of green spaces, and today I'm going to be focusing on one that really has a powerful story. So the space I'm going to be talking about is the Growing Home Gardens in South Philly. Actually, they're at 8th and Emily Street and 7th and Mercy Street, so right off of Snyder Avenue, so deep South Philly. And the origin story of that is back in 2010, there was a simple Maple Leaf greeting between strangers on a SEPTA bus, which led to the creation of the Growing Home Gardens. The exchange was between Adam Forbes, who at the time had a shovel with him and was working for the Nationality Service Center, and 2 older Nepalese couple. And from that conversation, simply over a shovel, a garden was formed. The couple explained that they had been farmers in Bhutan before being expelled from the kingdom during a systemic purge of people of Nepalese descent in the 90s. Eventually, they resettled in Philadelphia with hundreds of other families. The couple explained how they wanted to grow food, especially foods familiar to them. Within weeks, Adam Forbes was meeting with the Bhutanese refugees, and soon word spread amongst newcomers from Myanmar, also known as Burma. The group identified vacant land on Emily Street and Mercy Street, which included an abandoned playground that had been formerly a Parks and Rec site on Emily Street that had become an illegal dumping ground, and soon set about themselves to clean that space and create a community garden. Next slide, please. Fast forward about 11 years later to its creation. PHS was kind of part of that early kind of establishment of that community garden. We worked very closely with Adam Forbes, the Nationality Service Center, and the Burmese and Bhutanese gardeners to really kind of get that space established. Fast forward to 11 years later, after its creation, CMAC took over as a partner. CMAC is an organization that works in South Philly, mostly with the Southeast Asian population. Does assortment of wonderful programs, from after-school programming to partnering with Jefferson to provide healthcare services for the Southeast Asian population, to translation services. We started working with them about 4 or so years ago, and they took over as a partner of the space. And the gardens were formally secured through the Neighborhood Gardens Trust. So for the first 10 years, the gardens were unsecured. So meaning at any time these gardens could vanish after these refugees, these families put in so much sweat equity, blood, sweat, and tears into these lands, the land could have been lost. And it was no easy process to secure that land. I'm not going to get into the politics or the history behind it, but let's just say it took years. It took land transfers, working with private developers, city council members. It took a lot of action, but the land was finally preserved. And we're happy to say that both of these gardens right now are permanently preserved through the land trust. So, there's no risk of these gardens vanishing in the indefinite future or near future. In 2021, PHS, NGT, and CMAC and Parks Recreation renovated all the spaces, including expanding the site on Mercy Street to better accommodate the needs of the Mercy Street gardeners who identify as ethnic Karen. So these gardens are home to multiple ethnic groups. As I mentioned, you have Nepalese, Nepali families, you have Burmese families, Karen ethnic group, Chin ethnic group, you have Spanish-speaking Latinx community members also gardening there. It's a very diverse group of individuals gardening on these spaces. And these slides here are just some drone images of the renovated spaces. So the image on the left there is the Emily Street Garden, which has about 65 raised beds and about 100 or so families gardening there. And then the image on the right there is the Mercy Street Garden, which, as I mentioned, is mostly ethnic Karen. And there's about 20 or 30 families there that are gardening. Next slide, please. So in total, about 150 families are gardening in those spaces. So the significance of these spaces and really what these families are doing. So as I mentioned, there's over 150 families growing in these spaces. And you step into these spaces and you're almost transported. You don't feel like you're in Philadelphia anymore, especially South Philadelphia. I mean, you notice some of these unique techniques that the gardeners are incorporating, and a lot of these are traditional techniques that they're bringing over from Nepal, from Burma, Myanmar, Bhutan. So very unique, but they're also growing some really special crops there, a lot of which they're bringing over from Myanmar and Bhutan. And we also work closely with them to really try to identify what some of these crops are and help them with propagating them in our greenhouses. So we work with a lot of local seed companies, one of which is called True Love Seeds. If anyone's not familiar with them, check them out. They are fantastic. Owen and his partner Chris run it. They work with a lot of local growers to do seed saving. Seeds have great stories tied to them. Every seed has a story, whether it's a story tying back to someone's ancestral lands in Africa, in Asia, you name it. But all these seeds have a very unique and powerful story. So definitely check them out. But the families that are growing an assortment of different things. One of which is called, I'm not sure if I'm looking at these pictures. I don't think it's in this picture, it's another slide. Which actually, you could go to the next slide. I might have you go back. So actually that crop in the front there, so that is roselle, also called Chinbon Yet or sorrel. It's in the hibiscus family. It's native to Western Africa and eventually spread to Asia in the 17th century. And you see it grown a lot in Burmese cultures and incorporated in a lot of Burmese cuisine. They specifically use it in a dish called Chinbon Yet. Sorry, I'm not good with these pronunciations, pardon. Also called sour leaf. So typically what they'll do with it, the leaves are fried with garlic, or they're dried, or they're using dried and fresh prawns in it, and then incorporating green chilies. They also make a soup with the roselle leaves. So in some cultures, especially say Caribbean cultures, roselle is pretty much you think of like té de Jamaica or hibiscus tea. So they're incorporating the flowers there. In a lot of the Southeast Asian cultures, they're incorporating the leaves. So that's one unique crop that's being grown. The other is bitter melon, which I'm not going to try to pronounce because I'll probably butcher the pronunciation. But that too is very commonly used in Burmese cultures, sauteed with garlic, tomatoes, spices, and dried shrimp. Very common in street stalls. And in Nepal, it's prepared as a fresh pickle and also sauteed. Next slide. Here we go. So in this image here, she's showing off some of the roselle. The other crop that's very commonly grown, and we grow hundreds of this for the gardeners, is mustard greens or ryo sag. So this is something that, especially early part of the growing season, early spring, we're growing a lot of this, propagating it in our greenhouses and distributing it. And then actually in our next distribution in August is when we'll be growing out a lot of mustard greens, Indian mustard greens again. So kind of that really spicy kind of mustardy flavor that a lot of these mustard greens have. That's very common in the culture. And then another one, unfortunately I don't have an image of these. They're a little bit trickier to grow, but white garden egg baiter eggplants. Solanum Ethiopicum. The variety is Gillo. These also are very popular in West African cultures and Southeast Asian families. So you will see kind of a parallel here. A lot of the crops being grown by these families are also crops, very common in Western African cultures. They're tiny little white eggplants. They're not the easiest to grow. I know we have a hard time propagating them, and then once they're established, they can be a little finicky. But they can be eaten raw, boiled, sauteed, or in soups. They produce a little bit later than your average eggplant, and as I mentioned, they're kind of like egg size. And those seeds actually originate from Yao, an immigrant from Togo, and he's an ethnic crop specialist in Maryland. And the seeds were originally sourced from relatives in Africa. So sourced those seeds in Africa, brought them over here to America, to the United States, has been growing them and distributing those seeds. Actually, a lot of those seeds that Yao is growing is being sold to True Love Seeds, who are then cleaning them up, packaging them, and selling them. So you kind of see a relationship there. They have a slightly bitter flavor, very thin skin, but those are eaten with chili paste or in stews. And then the last crop being grown by these families that we grow a lot of are Thai hot chilies. In fact, it's funny, I was asking one of the gardeners, Noah Doe, who's ethnic Korean, she's actually at the Growing Home Gardens on Mercy Street. I was like, asking her, what else do you want us to grow? How else can, we support you all? She says, the hot peppers you grow aren't hot enough. And we probably grow about 25 or 30 varieties of hot peppers, and some of these on the Scoville rating are in the hundreds of thousands. And she said they're not spicy enough, and I don't know what else we could do, because we've got the ghost peppers, you name it, we've got them. So we're working with them to identify something spicier than a lot of the hot peppers we currently grow. Next slide. And that's the bitter melon. That's just a picture of the bitter melon there. Next slide, please. I'm just looking at time. And that one, I think I think that might be an image of the Indian mustard. I can't really tell from here. Next slide. So, just highlighting some of the impacts. So, as I mentioned, over 130 families are growing there. And, something important to note, reference is multi-generation. So, you have elders growing there along with their kids and their grandchildren. And the grandchildren are providing translation services for the elders. So, it's really beautiful to kind of see multi-generations growing there. And you also have multiple ethnic groups. I didn't mention this before, and I'll probably wrap it up soon just for time, and I know we have other things to go over, but you know, these gardeners faced a lot of discrimination when they first started growing there, and I don't want to ignore that fact. They really struggled, and the neighbors weren't welcoming to them, which is really sad and unfortunate, and I remember a lot of the elders were scared to garden there, especially go there at night. A lot of work has been done with CMAC, community outreach, city council, to really build a lot of cohesion, community building. A lot of neighbors now are gardening there. They've done a lot of potlucks. In fact, the People's Kitchen is gonna be doing a unity dinner in late August on Mercy and Emily Street. So they're gonna be doing dessert on one street and a dinner on the other. That's gonna be open for community residents. If anyone knows South Philly Barbacoa, Christina and her partner, they run the People's Kitchen. So they're going to be incorporating a lot of Southeast Asian cuisine there and lots of other things. So we're really excited about that and how that's going to be another way to kind of build community and really highlight the cultures and the importance there. Any other community impacts, just the organizational partnership. Lots of community partners here working collaboratively to preserve the space and ensure its success. And lastly, just uniting communities, you know, bridging some of those cultural bridges that are so important. Next slide. Just some ways to support PHS, so if you want to learn more about what we're doing, visit our website, check us out, volunteer with us. If you ever want to volunteer in one of our gardens or in our greenhouses, let me know. We've got lots of opportunities. Next slide. Flower show, I can't disclose what next year's theme is. I do know what it's going to be, but I can't disclose it yet because it's not public information yet, sorry. But yes, excited about that. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. These are just, I think, I will be here afterwards, so if you have questions, you know, let me know. I can give you my contact information. Next slide, I think my email's on there. So thank you all again, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, guys, time to stretch. Can you please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 21 of the great hymnal, or words on the screen, For the Beauty of the Earth.
So
Let us now enter into a time of awareness within ourselves and connection beyond boundaries, to connection to one another, to that interdependent web of life of which we are one small thread. As we breathe in, we are connected. As we breathe out, we are connected. Oh, hidden life, vibrant in every atom. Oh, hidden light, shining in every creature. Oh, hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. As we breathe in, we are connected. And as we breathe out, we are connected. May our minds create a vision of the world radical enough to be called holy. May our actions contain the promise of hope and the commitment of justice. May our hearts remember that love is a power that resists all forms of fear. By our thoughts, by our actions, by our hearts, and by our very breath. May it be so. Amen. As part of our caring outreach to one another, we set aside a few moments to note both joys and sorrows in our lives. In these moments of peace and reflection, we turn our attention to one another. We hold each and all in our compassionate thoughts and the prayers of our hearts. This morning, we are dropping stones in water. The bowl includes some of the water we gathered as a community back in September, so it contains the love of our congregation surrounding each joy or sorrow. As we add the stones to the bowl of water, our experiences are given weight and depth. We add a piece of our own stories to the collective waters of this community, a place that also holds the memories of those who have gone before and anticipates those who have yet to arrive.
Just a heads up, this morning Margaret and I had a last minute thought to update the words of the chorus to be more gender inclusive. I'm going to sing Come Build a Land Where All Good People. Don't worry, it's last minute, not expecting you to join me. I just wouldn't want to be surprised if you think, wait, she's doing something wrong, which we frequently do, but that's okay. Okay, so please rise in body and spirit and join in singing We'll Build a Land. Great hymnal number 121, or words up on the screen.
Where the oil of gladness is
This is our chalice extinguishing. As we nurture plants that grow and sustain us, may we tend to each other and all of our communities until we are together again. Go in peace and return in joy.